In the past, the act of war was the main way to conquer a country and further expand power. As a result, millions of people were killed, including innocent civilians. Not only that, but war also causes damage to public property, which brings losses worth millions of dollars. However, unlike today, the process of colonization is no longer only through the act of war. Instead, it can be done using more subtle means such as through economic and political colonization. As the world's political economic climate is uncertain, many parties are voicing concerns about China and its geostrategic moves. China's expansion and its strategic investments on the international stage are seen as so unsettling that some even claim that China is currently carrying out economic and political colonization in certain countries. In this video, we will see how China, one of the great powers of the world, colonizes the economy of other countries through its debt trap. Keep watching. China is experiencing a flourishing economic environment when they are seen to be actively investing with foreign countries. But at the same time, there are skeptical voices who argue that China's efforts are likely to become a new colonial instrument to fulfill Beijing's geostrategic ambitions. It is not only China, but the same is also done by other world powers, including the United States, by establishing diplomatic relations with certain countries with the aim of maintaining their influence and dominance. In fact, China obviously wants control over the South China Sea, which is shared by its neighboring countries. On the economic side, China has announced the One Belt and One Road Initiative, OBER program, which is an economic network for countries involved in the construction of various infrastructure and transport facilities connecting these countries. Although China has repeatedly denied it, many parties see this action as a form of economic colonization. This happened when China began to provide loan facilities to the countries involved, especially small countries such as Laos and Papua New Guinea. This action certainly raises questions from various parties, considering that China is so generous in giving loans to foreign countries. This claim is further strengthened by doubts that arise whether the borrowing countries are able to pay the amount of the loan within the set time frame. One Belt and One Road Initiative. Once upon a time, China was very famous for the Silk Road, which was the catalyst for the region's economy in the past. In the era of the 21st century, the Chinese government is seen once again trying to revive a new version of the Silk Road, which is now called the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. Fully supported by the Chinese government to expand its influence around the world, the funds required to fulfill this dream are too large and not many countries can afford it. The plan of the BRI, also known as OBOR, is to connect three continents, namely Asia, Africa, and Europe, with the purpose of enabling the borders of half the world's population to be coordinated in one giant route in a plan, which is expected to be a catalyst for the world economy, with China being the forerunner. According to estimates by the Institute of International Finance, IIF, since 2013, China has agreed to receive $690 billion in overseas investment and construction contracts in more than 105 countries. By narrowing the focus to the 72 countries involved in the BIR project, the IIF also estimates that China has channeled a total of $280 billion to 44 countries, which are either unrated or have no investment. Not only that, the result of efforts to develop facilities outside of China also requires extraordinary cooperation from various parties, especially the construction sector. However, the criticism received is when the Chinese government is seen as deliberately marginalizing local contractors in member countries by having companies and appointed workers flown in from China itself. Following the conditions set, many parties argue that China actually introduced a measure to allow their people to leave their country, reduce their economic burden, and shrink their very high population. Countries that are in huge debt with China. According to research published by the Kiel Institute for the World Economy, there are 7 countries in the world whose foreign loan debt to China exceeds 25% of their GDP. Sadly, most of these countries are small countries. 3 of them are in Africa, namely Djibouti, Niger, and the Republic of Congo, while 4 countries are in the Asian continent, namely Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Cambodia, and the Maldives. However, it is only accumulated through direct borrowing and does not include debt holdings or short-term trade debts. The study also shows that most countries that owe a lot to China are in Africa, followed by Central Asia and Latin America. Therefore, many parties see granting of this very large amount of debt as a cunning move by China to dominate those countries. This is because, if these countries are unable to pay the loan amount, some of them are forced to hand over control of the assets to China, or allow China to build their military bases in the country. Sri Lanka, the victim of Chinese debt trap. An example that we can learn from is Sri Lanka, which has now been trapped in a high loan debt by China through OBOR. Sri Lanka is said to have secured loans for various infrastructure construction projects and public facilities. Everything started when the former president of Sri Lanka, Mahinda Rajapaksa, who borrows with China. Although the new government took over the reins of government in 2015, this new government had to submit to the Chinese government and had to hand over the newly built Hambantota port to China. Although it is forbidden to place any equipment in this area, China is found to have defied it by bringing in its troops and establishing a military base there. To conclude, there is no denying that China's efforts can bring positive effects to the country's development. However, the leader of a country must be wise in making decisions, so that the sovereignty of the country is not compromised due to hectic pursuit of development. Therefore, ASEAN countries need to learn from what has happened to Sri Lanka to ensure that the sovereignty of the country is protected from any aggression, thus being able to maintain the status of Southeast Asia as a peaceful region without unrest. Thank you for watching.